Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Cooley. I'm the Targeted Outreach Director for the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, also known as DFPI. It's right at 12. Let's give everyone another minute to join. In the meantime, I want to go ahead and launch a poll question to get us all started. So, should be seeing the first question here. Do you budget? And again, let's give everyone another minute or two before we get started. Feel free to answer those two poll questions. Okay, thank you for answering those two different poll questions. Again, my name is Cooley. I'm the Targeted Outreach Director for the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, also known as DFPI. Thank you for joining our webinar. It is a little past 12. Let's go ahead and get started. So today's webinar is today's financial education webinar is about starting a successful budget for the beginning of this year. Let's jump right into it. So just a little bit of housekeeping. The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are those of the presenter, and they do not necessarily reflect those or views or the position of the DFPI. This presentation is for educational and informational purposes only. This is not financial advice, and it does not replace independent judgment or professional judgment. So we always encourage you to do your own research. The DFPI does not assume responsibility for the completeness of the information presented in this presentation. Again, we highly encourage you to do your own research. We're just talking high level on some topics and important things, and we highly encourage you to dig deeper, do more research if you're more interested about this topic. Also, your cameras and microphones have been turned off. This webinar is being recorded and it will be published to the DFPI's YouTube channel. If you do have a question, please submit it into the Zoom's Q&A feature. There's a dedicated Q&A session at the very end. And I know many of you actually submitted questions during the registration. I will also get to those questions right at the end during the Q&A. Okay, let's jump right into it. Who is the DFPI? What do we do? What is our role? The DFPI's central purpose is to maintain a fair, healthy, and trusted financial service marketplace for all Californians. The DFPI accomplishes this through regulating, enforcing a variety of financial services products and professionals. We also provide presentations throughout California to help consumers stay informed and help prevent them from falling prey to frauds and scams. If you want to learn more, we have a dedicated consumers webpage. It's dfpi.ca.gov/consumers. All right. Right before we get started into budgeting, budgeting is incredibly important, but it's also just a topic within financial literacy. It's the beginning of the year. I really want to emphasize the importance of financial literacy. What is financial literacy? It's a valuable life skill that enables you, consumers, individuals, to make smart, informed financial decisions, and also to understand the complexities of the financial world. So you'll be able to, having a good grasp of financial literacy will help you understand key terms and topics. It also empowers you to take control of your financial goals. And then, of course, it also will help you avoid financial scams and fraud. Um, so, one thing that I've been talking about for a long time, but I've really just started to share with a lot of individuals is this financial capability roadmap. Now, what is this? Well, um, if you know who I am, I'm a veteran. I used to actually, I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I used to teach a navigation course. And so the first thing you want to do when you're trying to get somewhere is to determine where are you, right? So if you look at this roadmap, you want to take a very honest look at yourself, your financial situation, and say, where am I, right? Where am I on this roadmap? Am I financially insecure? Am I financially stable? Am I financially dependent or independent? Um, and then the other thing is you want to once you know where you're at, and then you could determine where you want to go, right? So here's some definitions, right? It's a very broad definitions. This isn't concrete. I've helped all these definitions were kind of developed with the help of a couple of financial advisors and professionals. And I just want to highlight things like, being financially stable is just making enough money to cover your expenses, your debts. And a lot of people want to get to financial security, which is basically having enough funds to withstand certain hardships, right? And I know a lot of people really want to get to financial independence, which is no longer requiring a primary income stream. So these slides will be shared, and you'll have a chance to look at this a little bit more in depth. I just really want to share it because I think it's incredibly important to understand where you're at, where you want to go, and of course, how to get there, right? So knowing and using financial literacy can take you from being financially dependent, financially insecure, to being financially secure and financially independent, or even financially free, right? And it may take one topic, it may take a couple different financial literacy topics. So creating a budget, managing your debt, retirement planning. It may take one or multiple of these financial literacy topics, but understanding it could take you again from this side of the roadmap to this side of the roadmap. Okay, enough about that. I did want to, sorry. I do want to launch one more poll before we move forward, and it is the financial literacy poll. So let's take 1 minute to answer this question, right? How important is financial literacy to you? This is kind of a question that I ask everyone. You know, Nonprofits, community-based organizations, other government agencies, and I try to gauge how much should we be sharing this kind of information, how much should we be teaching, right? What topics should we teach? What's important to individuals? So your answers are going to be incredibly important to helping us continue these presentations and providing great content for you, valuable content for you, of course. So couple more seconds to finish this poll. Looks like we have a lot of really great. This it's very looks like a lot of people are answering very important, which is to me it's very encouraging. All right, I'm going to end the poll, and I do want to share the results. So it looks like 89% of our attendees here believe that financial literacy is very important. It's very important to them, and I'm happy to hear that. We will continue these types of presentations and topics. All right, moving on. Let's get to the meat and bones of this. Budgeting, right? It's the new year. You're trying to manage your finances. You want to achieve those financial goals this year. Let's talk about budgeting. It's It is the very first topic I talk to people about, and it's the most, and in my opinion, one of the most very important topics. So, what is budgeting? It's really just goal setting, right? Um, I don't know anyone who just budgets for the sake of budgeting. I know everyone that I talk to about budgeting, if they have a budget, they're really just trying to have some kind of financial goal that they're trying to achieve, right? They want to buy a house, they want to buy a new car, they want to get out of debt. They're budgeting for a reason, and that is the goal, right? So budgeting is goal setting. Remember, budgeting is again one of the most critical financial skills that builds healthy financial behaviors, right? And that's really what we want. We want to help you, we want individuals to have those healthy financial habits. Um, achieving your financial goal can also help you earn gratification, right? And of course, writing down your goals really helps you be more committed to achieving your goals. Also, sharing your goals to your loved ones, friends, family, because they reinforce your financial goals, right? So if you're trying to buy a house, your family knows that and you share it with your family. They know that you're trying to buy a house, you're trying to save money, right? Your friends won't bug you so much about going out to eat when they know that you're trying to save money to buy a house, buy a car, get out of debt, that kind of thing. All right. Why budget? Um, of course, you want to learn where your money is going, right? If you don't budgets, you're not really probably don't have a good understanding of where all your money goes on a monthly, weekly, daily basis, right? How much are you spending on food? How much are you spending on expenses, right? Just knickknacks that you buy. Of course, you want to budget to create financial stability. Also, definitely want to build those healthy saving and spending habits, right? If To a lot of people, a budget is a way to stop them from impulse buying, right? When you realize that, oh, I did not budget for this purchase I'm going to make. Or maybe you're at the checkout line and you see, I don't know, a magazine and you're thinking, maybe I want to buy this, but I didn't budget for it. It's out of my budget. It's a great way to stop you, right? To help build that spending habit. You could prioritize spending, paying down or saving money, right? That's a great reason to budget. Um, it's also, a great way to, of course, set those financial goals and meet them. And another big thing, we're going to talk about this a little more, is saving for emergency, right? Having an emergency fund. And of course, managing your money. All right, psychology of budgeting. A lot of this content right here was, and a big shout out to Anita Johnson, who helped build a lot of this content. So, psychology of budgeting. She is a financial psychologist, by the way. So, one thing that she talks about is budgeting is to many people, budgeting is such a negative word, right? Maybe you're at work and your coworkers say, hey, let's go out and eat. You don't want to say, hey, I'm on a budget, I can't do it, right? It's kind of a negative word, and it could create those negative psychological feelings in you. So instead of using the word budget, think about using alternative words. So things like, hey, I'm on a spending plan, or I'm on a savings plan, um, or whatever you believe, whatever psychological thing that's going to help you not only remind you that you're on a budget, but also help others understand why you're budgeting, right? So you could say, hey, I'm on a home savings plan, right? I can't go out and eat with you today because I'm saving up for a house. And I guarantee you your coworkers are going to understand. They're going to not only understand, but they might be able to willing to buy you lunch or help you out, right? So if budgeting is one of those things that creates a negative psychological moment for you, cut out the word, right? The word's not important. You're on a spending plan, you're on a savings plan. All right. Um, of course, we talked about budgeting helps with impulse spending, right? An example of this is credit cards, which gives you the ability to spend now and of course, pay for it later. And you want to build that stop gap, right? You want to build that gap between just suddenly buying and then having to pay it later. And so budgeting is going to really build that, I want to say roadblock, right? Speed bump for you. This is a big one, and I didn't think about this until Anita and I talked about it in depth. Budgeting is not no. or never. It it really is just not now. What does that mean? Well, if your friends want to go out and eat, right? They just call you up and they want to go out to eat at a really expensive restaurant. It's you don't have to say no and never, right? You may say, well, I didn't add it into my monthly budget, or I didn't. It's not in my spending plan, but we could do it next month, right? Let me just add it into my spending plan, and we could definitely do it next month, or whenever you get paid again, you can of course add it into your budget. So budgeting is not no or never, and so don't again that negative psychological thing is going to create it's going to hinder you from wanting to budget or continuing to budget. So again, budgeting is not no, it's just not right now, right? Okay, you do want to acknowledge and understand that people do a lot of stress spending. It's a thing. I do it. I know all my my friends, family, they do it, right? You might have a stressful day at work, or you might be, under some kind of stress. And what happens is, in a moment of relief, you want to just buy something. You might just want to buy something expensive to get your mind off of the current stress that you're under. So you really just want to acknowledge that stress spending is a thing, but if you have a budget, you can realize that it's not in your budget to stress spend, right? Spending is something you can control, and of course your budget helps you with this, right? um, I'm sorry, I'm going to talk a little bit louder. I see in the Q&A. I apologize if I'm not talking loud enough. All right. So external influences on your spending. One thing to acknowledge, right, is that there are a lot of different external influences that affect your spending habits. So things like, your society where you live, right? Social acceptance, right? If everyone's buying a smartphone, you need to have a smartphone, that kind of thing. You also understand that there are advertisements. You are bombarded with advertisements every day, right? You're on the radio, on TV, on YouTube, right? Whatever you're watching or wherever you're at, you're being bombarded by advertisements, and that slowly eats away at your own personal willpower. So as long as you acknowledge that these social pressures, these advertisements are affecting you, then you could build what do you call it? You could build a personal shield around yourself, right? So that they don't influence you to spend more than you need to. There's also peer pressure, right? And peer comparing. So your friend buys a new car, you feel like the car you drive is not good enough to be with them, right? Or maybe your friends are all going out to eat all the time and you feel like you need to go with them. That's an external influence that's going to influence your spending. And of course, family, right? Family, it doesn't have to be family, it could be social organizations that you're involved with. There are external influences on your spending, and you need to acknowledge that, right? All right. Again, we talked about it's so important to create and develop those healthy spending and saving behaviors. And that's all what the psychology of budgeting is really about. It's starting out small on paper, or an app or some kind of spreadsheet, getting used to building in those things like a speed bump to impulse spending, and also understanding those external influences. And once you understand all that, you don't necessarily need to have a paper budget, but you build those healthy spending habits and behaviors that will help you save money. All right, I'm going to really briefly go through the basics, and then I want to share a spreadsheet. It's the same exact budget spreadsheet I use, and I'm more than happy to include it in the follow-up email that I send everyone. So what belongs in a budget? Well, of course, your income, right? So that might be salary, passive income that you have, anything that you sell. It might also be things like investments that you have, dividends that you get. Maybe it's rental income is kind of a passive income. It could be benefits that you get, right? So maybe you're retired, so Social Security is kind of a salary. So those are, you want to have your income in your budget. You also want to have any debts. Now there's a difference between debt and expenses, and a lot of people don't really think about this, but it's so important to identify the difference between a debt and expense. So a debt is an obligation that you have to pay, right? So could be student loan, might be a car loan, credit card debt that you might have, maybe your mortgage, all sorts of personal loans, that kind of thing. The thing about debt is, as long as you're paying it, there is a point where it'll disappear, right? You will eventually finish your debt obligation and then it's gone. And that money that you could be spending on debt becomes income or savings or goes somewhere else, right? That's different from expenses. So expenses are things like food, rent, utilities. You're always going to have to pay food. You need to eat, right? You're always going to have to pay for utilities. Wherever you live, you have to pay for it. Insurance, gas, transportation, that kind of thing. Those are um, expenses that don't have a deadline, right? There's no obligation, there's no end to it. You're going to always need it. And so, why is this important? The difference between debt and expenses. It's important because, and some people I've seen in their budgets, they merge them together. It's important because to keep them separate, because debt, again, understand that at some point, as long as you're paying on it, it's eventually going to disappear, right? And your goal should be trying to eliminate the debt so you can have more money for savings or your other financial goals. Expenses you want to minimize, right? So if you're eating out too much, right, that's food expense. If you're not turning off the lights when you're leaving a room, that's utilities, right? So you want to minimize your expenses. Of course, you want to have enough insurance to cover any kind of emergencies. You don't want to minimize that, but at the same time, the idea is that you want to minimize expenses but pay off your debts, right? Very important to know the difference between the two. Um, of course, in a budget, you want to make sure you add a little bit of extra cushion for anything fun, right? Extra stuff that you usually do, or you don't want to overstress yourself by not having any kind of recreational activity. And of course, you want to obviously factor in some emergency funding, and then add in your financial goals, right? It's so important. Again, we talk about budgeting is about goal setting. So have those financial goals as a reminder every time you budget. I'm getting closer towards achieving those financial goals. And here's just kind of a basic formula, right? Income minus debt minus fixed expenses minus the fun and emergencies equals financial goals, whatever that is. So really quickly, what I do want to do here is share, let me share the budget worksheet that I use. All right. So this is the budget worksheet I use. And I'm more than happy to share with you this budget worksheet. What I did here is I just inputted a bunch of numbers. This is not necessarily my budget, but feel free to edit this as you want. So it's an Excel sheet, but you can also move it into Google Sheets, which is free. If you have a Microsoft OneDrive account, you can add it in there and you can edit it and make changes. So right here at the very bottom tab, it says 2024 monthly budget. It's just a reminder. It's a reminder to you how much you have, your monthly income is. But yeah, by the way, this is a monthly budget. Some people budget daily, other people budget weekly, quarterly, maybe. But I go monthly. To me, it's a lot easier. And so, I just put in some suggested debts, right? Expenses. And then of course you have your savings, any other things. And so this is kind of just a template. Your monthly budget is a template to get you to remember that, hey, my cell phone bill is $100 a month, right? I have storage that costs me $120 a month, right? I have streaming services that cost me $50 a month. You could change this if you, again, remove your streaming service. Maybe you finish paying off a credit card. You could just remove that from your template. And that's what the monthly budget is. So if you look at like January, what you should be doing is just tracking all these expenses, right? So maybe you have rent and then you have your cell phone. So once you pay all of that, you just add it in. And what you're doing is you're tracking your expenses, you're tracking your debts, you're tracking your income. Maybe you have any kind of savings, right? And then anything else, right? Especially if you're looking through the months. So like for instance, I have a brother's birthdays in January. I'm adding that into my budget, right? In February here, it's Valentine's Day. Don't want to forget that. So I'm adding into my budget, right? If you look at, let's say December, I have holiday save shopping, right? $300 there. And then at the very end, I have my goals, right? And so you can add in all your different financial goals here and create a formula where all your savings or all your emergency funds or goals add up at the very end. So just want to share my spreadsheet, what I use. You could use whatever you want, budgeting apps. Um, there's a lot of other different spreadsheets out there. And what I encourage you to do is just budget. You don't need something fancy. Um, you don't even use my spreadsheet if you don't want to. I just want to share it with you. Um, if you want. Okay, next slide. Uh, so let's talk about some budgeting strategies, right? This is a very popular one. It's called the 50-30-20 budgeting method. It's just a quick, easy way for you to break down your income on how you should be allocating money, right? So 50% of your income covers essentials. So that's like the expenses, your debts, that kind of a thing. And then of course, 30% is discretionary spending. That's kind of your fun. And then 20% for savings, right? Again, rule of thumb, you budget however you believe it's going to help you reach your financial goals. Another real popular budgeting strategy, and this one is because there's not a lot of math involved, is the envelope budgeting method. I know it's a lot of text on here. I'll summarize it for you. In the envelope budgeting method, you have just envelopes where you go ahead and just uh, you name each envelope a certain thing, right? So one might be student loan, one might be rent, one might be credit card or car payment, right? And every month when you get paid or whenever you get paid, you can put money into that envelope and then take money out, right? So you might have an envelope for food and you put in money for food there whenever you get paid. And then however much money you designate for food, you put it into there, and then you take money out when you want to buy food or go out and eat, right? So it's a popular method because again, it doesn't involve too much math. And then at the end of the month, you can always count how much money you have left, and it's very physical, right? Instead of having to do spreadsheets and numbers, it's just a very physical activity. The downside is you're kind of putting money in a mattress, or it's kind of putting cash somewhere, and it's you don't want to. I would say you don't really want to have that much cash just laying around. So that's just my own thought. If it works for you, it works for you. So here's some other popular budgeting strategies. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I just want to share them with you. Um, what I tell everyone, and you can Google these if you want to learn more about how they work. Um, what I tell everyone is find the budgeting strategy that works for you. Okay. Again, spreadsheets might not be your thing. Phone apps, might not be your thing. Find the budgeting strategy that works for you, that you like, and helps you achieve your financial goal. That's what's most important. Um, so we're getting a lot of great questions in the Q&A. Again, just a reminder, please submit your questions into the Q&A. If you have questions, comments, we'll answer them at the very end. Yes, I will be sharing these slides in a follow-up email. You'll also get a link to this webinar recording. All right. Let's talk about strategies for repaying your debt, right? One thing that works very well is obviously prioritizing your debts, right? Not just making the minimum payments, but two very popular methods is like the snowball method or the avalanche method. In the snowball method of paying down debt, you list your debts, right? Debt obligations from smallest to largest, and then you pay off the smallest ones first, right? You still pay off the other ones. You pay the minimum debt amount, and then the smallest debt you put as much as you can to pay that one off. And then once that's paid off, you go to the next one, right? You pay that one off as much as you can. So that's the snowball. The avalanche is the complete reverse, which is it's not the complete reverse, but what it is you take the debt that has the highest interest rate, and then you pay that one down first. So you list all your debts, and then whatever one has the highest interest, that's the one you're going to be putting all your money into to paying off as quickly. Again, what I tell everyone is, hey, use whatever debt repayment method that works for you, right? For some people, honestly, a lot of people enjoy the snowball method only because you see progress a lot faster, right? Because you're paying off the smaller debts first, and it's kind of a it's a hit of what do you call of achievement when you are able to finish paying that debt off and you go to the next one. You pay that one off, you go to the next one, right? Avalanche is good because overall you're saving money on interest rate, on your debt interest rates. Okay, another thing you could do is obviously you could negotiate interest rates or payments with creditors. Um, you're always welcome to talk to your bank if you have a personal loan, credit card, anyone who has the credit the debt that you owe. You let them know your situation, and to be honest, it's not going to cost you anything to ask, and many of them are willing to work with you, especially if you're in a very hard financial situation. Uh, you could always cut unnecessary expenses, right? That streaming that you barely watch, cut that out, use that extra money, pay it down debt. Um, you could also increase your income, right? Things like side gig or freelance work, maybe getting a part-time job if you're really deep in debt and you just need what one of my mentors calls a bigger shovel to just get yourself out of debt, right? You can also consider consolidation. It works for some people. It works for a lot of people. I would look at the terms very carefully because basically you're exchanging. Maybe you have a lot of different debt, right? 4 or 5 credit cards, maybe some personal loans. You're exchanging all of this for another loan. Um, Sometimes it's a good idea, sometimes it's not. So I would say consider it, just review it. If it works for you, great. And then finally, seek financial advice, right? Certified financial advisor, planner, credit counselor, they could always just review your situation and give you good advice, right? Or just advice in general. You don't need to take their advice, but maybe you need that outside perspective to look at your situation and tell you, hey, this is what you should do. This is the best situation, right? Okay, emergency fund, so important. It's so important, and the reason why I'll give you kind of a broad story. um I used to work at a TV station, and we used to it's a nonprofit TV station, and we had a program where we brought in individuals who are homeless or housing challenged, and they would talk about their life and how they became homeless. And believe it or not, very many, a large amount of them became homeless because of one emergency, right? Or it took a couple emergencies, but they all hit at the same time. So medical bills was a big one, right? There, someone's doing fine, and then they get hit by some, a skiing accident, a car accident of some sort. They don't have insurance, and then suddenly they are, crazy in debt. They lose their house, they lose their apartment, whatever it is. So emergency fund, so incredibly important, for the small things and for the big things, right? So just a couple quick things. I'm not going to dive too deep on this slide, but you definitely want to determine and set your emergency fund goal, right? The amount. It should typically be 3 to 9 months of living costs, which includes like expenses, debt payments. So things like food, utilities, insurance payments, your rent if you have that, maybe a car payment, right? That's a debt obligation. Student loans should be part of your emergency fund goal. So calculate all that together, right, on a monthly basis, and times it by 3 or 6 or 9. And think about that worst case scenario, right? Let's just say you're going out for a job and you get hit by a car. You can't work for 3 months. You're in the hospital. Maybe you're in a coma for 3 to 6 months. How is your family going to survive without you, bringing money into your income, right? That's what emergency fund is for. Always smart, small, always start small, right? And build up over time. That's a great way to do anything, right? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you build an emergency fund? $1 at a time. It's great to have a huge emergency fund, but to get there, you're gonna have to start small. Automate your savings, right? Maybe you're not very good at just doing it. You know what? One thing that I do is I just set my bank to automatically withdraw $100 a month and put it into a savings account. And that's my emergency fund. That's it. I don't do anything else. I don't even think about it. It's just automatically taken out. And it's really grown over time. Um, of course, we talk about cutting unnecessary expenses. Use those big financial windfalls, right? So things like tax refunds, any kind of bonuses, gifts, right? Maybe you get a big gift, $100 for your birthday or something. Instead of going out and just using that $100 on some new clothes or whatever it may be, put it into your emergency fund, right? Watch that emergency fund grow, and with that you can get to financial security, right? We're talking about being financially stable, financially secure. Having an emergency fund is so critical to being financially secure. Of course, you can always unsell any unnecessary items, right? And definitely replenish your emergency fund after use. Again, remember I was telling you, it's all it takes, right, is a couple emergencies hitting you all at the same time, right? You get in a car accident, then you lose your job, and then you lose your apartment. It just gets all catastrophic at the same time, and it gets harder and harder to get yourself back. So again, replenish your emergency fund, especially after you use it. Okay. um, this is more psychology, financial psychology here. Here's some common reasons why people stop budgeting, and the reason we want this to share the slide and all these things with you is so that you know that these are reasons why people stop budgeting, but at the same time, because these are reasons why people stop budgeting, you can overcome these reasons, right? So maybe you started too fast and you tried to save too hard, right? Maybe your financial goal this year is I want to have a $10,000 emergency fund. That might be a little hard to do, especially if you have a very thin budget. So start start slow, right? Don't save too hard. You'll get burned out. Maybe you're unable to develop good spending habits over time, right? Even despite having a budget, things on paper, right? Everything's on your spreadsheet, but you're still impulse buying. And every month when you update your budget, you're seeing that, oh my goodness, I'm just impulse buying and my budget's not working, right? People see that, and that's one of the reasons why they stop budgeting. Just remember, hey, I need to just cut my impulse buying. Um, Despair, right, for not reaching or achieving your financial goals, right? Maybe you have unrealistic financial goals. I want to buy a brand new car by the end of this year. That might not be achievable. And if you get to that point where you're not seeing progress, you may want to stop budgeting. But again, start small. Budgeting, saving money, achieving your financial goals takes time. Maybe your budget went off track. That happens a lot. And so I always tell people budgets go off track all the time, right? The plans always, uh, no plan ever survives first contact, right? It's an army saying. So you know that your budget's going to go off track. That's okay, right? You could just adjust your budget. This is another one. You did not follow up, or you don't update your budget, right? You don't update it monthly, and maybe you forget. And then 2 months later, you're like, oh my goodness, I have a budget. I need to go back and look at how my spending is happening. Where are my finances? Financial situation changes, right? Maybe you get more money, right? You get a huge raise. Maybe you change jobs. Maybe you lose your job, right? A lot of people stop budgeting because of different situations. Their financial situation changes. But I do want to let you know that your budget is, even though your financial situation changes, update your budget, and it'll help you help build confidence, and also help eliminate some of that anxiety you might have if bad financial situation if you experience bad financial situations. And of course, if you get positive financial situation, right, a big bonus, a promotion, more money, um, win the lottery, a budget is really going to help you reach those financial goals and help you manage your money. Of course, this is a big one here. Family and friends or your partner is not on board with your budget, right? If you're not sharing the budget with them, or if you do share it with them, they don't agree with how your budget is going. What I tell people is, hey, it's your budget, right? Number one, you should be proud of your budget. You're trying to achieve your budget is your goals, your financial goals. It's yours. It's not theirs, right? So, you know, I tell people, hey, be content with your financial situation, your financial goals, and that you're trying to reach those financial goals. And if you really have good friends, a partner, or family, they should be supporting you. Or they might be helping you, right? Great suggestions on how to improve your budget, and achieve your financial goals. It's also, another thing that might be too easy to spend money, so people just disregard budgeting, right? Again, it's building those financial speed bumps, right? Um, yeah, budgeting is stressful. Budgeting is definitely stressful. But again, I tell people focus on achieving your financial goals, right? Stressful is things like, and a lot of people think maybe overthinking. I need to track this expenditure. I'm at the store. I need to track this. I need to track that. Um, really, again, you want to think about achieving those financial goals, focusing on that instead of, hey, I need to just track everything, right? Or I need to track all my spending. Hey, you're not rewarding the small successes, right? That's one reason why people stop budgeting. You really do add that into your budget, right? Say, hey, if I achieve my emergency fund, if I save $1,000 this year, I want to go out and eat. I want to take my spouse out to eat or something, right? Or I want to go get myself a gift. Factor that into your budget, so that you can again build those rewards for you achieving your financial goals. All right, let's talk about a couple of real quick budgeting tips. Obviously, you want to spend less than what you make. It's a very simple thing. Um, Check your progress every week, right? Again, reminding you of your financial goals, but also your spending habits. Share your finances, right? Create a budget with your partner. That's definitely important. Whether it's a spouse or maybe it's a roommate, right? Create a budget together. Um, remember remember every month is different. Every month is different. Um, Valentine's Day only happens once a year, so you want to make sure you've had that half of that in. You're obviously going to have birthdays and anniversaries, that kind of thing. Put that into your budget. Put that into your monthly budget. Remember it so that it doesn't hit you by surprise. Right? Budget on a monthly basis. This the way I prefer. Some people do it daily, which is, hey, whatever works for you. Um, you can prioritize paying off high interest debts. We talked about the avalanche method. Uh, Find a budgeting tool to help you. Whatever tool with app, spreadsheet, envelopes, whatever budgeting tool that works for you, find it and use it. Um, have those short-term and long-term financial goals, right? Those short-term goals, maybe a year, a couple months. Long-term financial goals are like 5, 10 year type of things. So investing, buying a home, that kind of a thing. Long-term financial goals, to kind of keep you headed in a certain direction, right? Saving with a purpose. And of course, we talked a little bit about this. Be content, right? Quit the comparisons. So, yeah, like your new coworker, your coworker got a brand new car, or the neighbor got a brand new lawnmower. If you don't need it, right? It's just be content with being able to with the things you have, and you don't need to compare yourself with others, right? Okay. Oh yeah, of course we talked about creating barriers to spending, impulse buying, that kind of thing. um, okay, staying motivated. You're not alone. You are not alone. Whether you don't budget, or you're thinking about budgeting, or you're starting budgeting, or you're a budgeting veteran, you're not alone. A lot of individuals, and I had some statistics, I don't have it right here, but a lot of people budget. A lot of people. And a lot of people don't budget. So you're not alone. Um, uh, Not understanding your finances. But again, don't let your money control you. You want to control your money, and you could do that with the budget. Stay motivated. You can achieve your financial goals, right? And your budget is your roadmap to achieving those financial goals. And of course, you want to get rid of your financial anxiety, right? Create a budget. It gives you that confidence, that, hey, I know where my money is going. I know what I'm spending my money on. And I know that I'm reaching my financial goals, right? Every single day is a day closer to me achieving my financial goals. Here's a slide of some great some budgeting resources, right? Again, I'm going to be sharing these slides with you in an email for everyone who registered. So you can click on these links and go to them. All right, Q&A session. A lot of really great questions here. Reminder, if you do have a question, please feel free to submit it into the Zoom's Q&A feature, and I will go through those live right now. All right, let's see here. Your income should be adjusted income, not gross, correct? Yes, you're definitely your income should be what you get as a paycheck. Don't think of it as what I get per year or what my salary is per month, right? It should be what goes into your direct deposit per month, or if you get paid by check, what you earn by check per month. So yes, your adjusted income, not your gross. Your gross is things already taken out, right? Health insurance, 401k, all that's already been taken out. Social security, all that's been taken out. And so what you get in your bank account is what you should be adding in as your income to your budget. Great question. Next one. Will you receive these slides? Yes, I will be sending a copy of these slides out. Can you share your spreadsheet with us? Yes, I will attach the spreadsheet that I use to the follow-up email. Again, you're more than welcome to share it. It is free. Use it. Give it to someone you know. My whole thing is, hey, I want people to save money. I want you to reach your financial goals. And what's helped me again is this spreadsheet. So I want to share what works for me. But if it doesn't work for you, doesn't work for your friends, that's fine. Feel free to edit as you need to also. Great question. Can you re-share the links from the previous page? Yes. You know what I'll do? I'll do this. So I'm going to keep this slide up. Feel free to use these slides, go to them. So great question here. And will the slides and presentation include your audio? So this webinar is being recorded, and we always publish our financial education webinars to our YouTube channel. And after this webinar, I will send a follow-up email. That follow-up email will have a copy of these slides. It'll have the budget spreadsheet, and also have a link to the YouTube video. So you could rewatch it, you could share it. So you can do whatever you want, and it'll have audios. It should have closed captioning as well. So yes, it'll be available a little after the webinar today. Thank you, thank you. If you have any more questions, please submit it into the Q&A feature. I do want to go over some of the questions that were submitted prior to the webinar. What does a well-rounded budget look like? So we talked about some things that go into a budget, right? So your income, debts, expenses, you got like fun, entertainment, recreation, as well as your savings, emergency fund if you want to put into as well. That's generally what a well-rounded budget looks like. But I'll also say, out of all the budgets that people have shared with me, no two budgets are the same. No two budgets are the same. Everyone has different financial situation, different incomes, different debts. And so what I say is just make sure that you're accounting for everything that you need to pay for, right? And also all your income. And one of the great things about having a budget is seeing that, oh my goodness, I'm spending more than the money that I'm bringing in, and maybe I need to bring in more money, or I need to cut down on my expenses, right? Having a budget is going to show you that. And again, it's the beginning of the year. Happy New Year. It's a great time to start doing that, to seeing where your money goes and how you can effectively reach those financial goals. Okay, how often should someone review and update the budget? I do it monthly. You could do it daily, you could do it weekly, whatever works for you, as long as you're reviewing it and updating your budget, right? Some people have very fast spending habits, right? I have a friend that drives cargo. He's a trucker. He drives cargo all over the United States. Former Army buddy of mine. He's fantastic. He budgets daily because he never knows where he's going to be in the next day, right? He's driving somewhere. He needs to make a stop. He needs to pay for fuel. He needs to pay for parking. He needs to buy food. So he budgets daily. For me, I'm a little more stable, right? I budget monthly. So whatever works for you, update your budget accordingly. what tools and apps do you recommend? So you know what? Again, I talked about I use a spreadsheet. You could use envelopes. You can use apps. There's lots of free apps out there. Um, Many of them have like a premium tier, right? They have like a free version and their premium tier. If it works for you, you could pay for the premium tier. But I always suggest try it out, right? Download the app, try it out. If it works for you, great. Sometimes it won't. Then don't worry about it. If you have a bank, if you're banking with a big bank, some of those banks have free budgeting apps built into their what do you call it, their financial app, right? So check those out, right? Check out if your credit union or your bank app has a budgeting feature. You could use that to help you manage your expenses, financial goals, that kind of thing. um, how can freelancers or individuals with irregular income create an effective budget? That's a really, really great question. And I have a lot of friends that own and run their own businesses. And it is a very common question that I get is, should I split my business income, right? My business budget from my personal budget? Answer is yes. You should definitely have two different budgets, one for your business, one for your personal, especially for tax purposes. But you definitely want, if you're a freelancer, you're an individual like a contractor, and you're getting irregular income. How are you going to create a budget? Well, what I always say is average it out, right? For income, for the income section of your budget, try to average it out. You're going to know, you should know, right? Maybe in the summer you're really busy and you have a lot of money that comes in, but maybe in the winter everything slows down, right? You should know this kind of financial trends. Again, if you don't know, a budgeting is going to help you figure that out very quickly. But at the same time, try to average it out. Again, some months are going to be great, some months are bad. And I do know a freelancer. Again, my trucker buddy is one of those that has definitely irregular income. Right, they get paid when they deliver something or they finish a project. Um, so what I always tell them is definitely have a bigger emergency fund, right? And have a minimum expense and kind of average your income, right? So it's a great question. Very good question. How does repaying my debts fit into my overall budget strategy? So again, we talked about the difference between debt and expense, right? You want to pay off your debt because once you pay off your debt, that extra money could go into things like savings, investing, reaching your financial goals. Expenses are expenses. You're always going to pay that, right? I always have to buy food. I always need to pay rent. I always need to pay for utilities. That's a thing. Um, so I always need to pay for tuition for my kids, whatever it may be, right? So you definitely want to understand that debts you want to pay off, expenses you want to minimize, and that should be your strategy, right? Um, Example, can you provide examples of short-term and long-term financial goals? So short-term, again, it's usually something like it could be anything from 3 months to a year, right? And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It could just be I want to save $10,000 by the end of this year. That's a very simple one, right? I usually tell individuals try to think in terms of not just money, because money is just numbers, but think of it in terms of physical things, right? Or achievements of some sort. So, for instance, a vacation. I want to travel to Europe, right? How much is that going to cost you? $10,000, $20,000? How long is it going to take you to save? So instead of saying I need to save $20,000, you're thinking I'm saving for a Europe trip, and it's going to take me 2 years, right? So short-term goals, again, those short-term and long-term goals, think of it in terms of like an experience or a physical thing. I want to buy a new car. I want to go to college, right? I want to save up for college, right? Think of it like that. That's a psychological thing. And of course, there's a number associated with that. So short term could be a month, could be a year, could be 2 years. Long term is think of it like 5 years, 10 years, right? How much do I want to have in my emergency fund? How much do I want to have in my investments, right? Uh, that's long-term financial goals. Okay, we only have a couple more minutes. Let me wrap this up very quickly. How does budgeting differ for individuals in various stages of life? So students, young professionals, absolutely. Retirees, yeah. Um, your budget, again, I talked about this. No two budgets are ever the same. If you're, and again, this goes along with updating your budget on a monthly basis, but also on a yearly basis, right? What are those financial things you're trying to achieve this year? And then, of course, someone who is just starting their career is going to budget differently from someone who is about to retire. So I want to say you definitely want to acknowledge that. Question just came in. Any suggestions for how to build in speed bumps to slow down impulse spending? Examples of different types of speed bumps. So a good one here. I'm a victim of Amazon, right? I love the shopping ease. I love how fast they deliver, but I'm also a victim of how fast it is to just impulse buy, right? Oh, I didn't remember. I didn't know I needed this charging cord. I'll just buy it right now. A great way to build a speed bump is something like disconnecting your credit card from Amazon. So every time you want to buy something, you need to take out your credit card. You need to add it in. You need to, add in to make the payment, right? Um, other things. So is to recognize that, and again, building a budget helps you see where your spending habits go, right? Um, I am a sucker for Ryobi tools, right? The power tools available at a certain hardware store. I'm a sucker for them. I buy them when I see them. My wife is my speed bump. Every time I want to buy a power tool, my speed bump is I got to go to my wife and make a justification for buying this power tool. And she always rolls her eyes and says, okay, give me the pitch. And so sometimes she says yes, sometimes she says no. You have that tool already. You're just buying another version of it, right? So she's my speed bump. And that's all it really takes, right? Sometimes it's just another person, outside perspective, telling you yes or no. So wow, fantastic question. Thank you. Um, okay, let's see. How can someone integrate tax planning? Tax season coming up. Definitely want to factor that in, especially if you know that you're going to be paying back taxes, or maybe you're going to be getting taxes, right? You're going to get a tax return. Add that into your budget, right? Whether it goes to your emergency fund or maybe your tax return pays off debt, right? Add that into your budget. Or if you know that you have to pay back taxes, um, add that into your budget. Make sure that you're saving money this month and next month and whenever you need to, so that you can pay back those taxes that you might owe. Great question. How flexible should a budget be, and what factors might be necessary for change? Um, this is what I tell. Again, we talked about this. No plan ever survives first contact. No budget ever will survive its first month. But you always want to be flexible with it, right? Your child has to get some dental work, right? Maybe there's an emergency. These things happen, and it's really hard to plan for them. But again, it's all about having that emergency fund. It's all about adding it into your budget, and maybe you spent more this month, right? Maybe I spent a lot more than I intended to in January. That's okay. I can catch up February. I can catch up in the next couple of months. Just add it into your budget. I need a save to replenish my emergency fund, or I need to save for all that extra spending I did, or I added too much on my credit card during the holidays and I need to, you know, push that out in the next couple of months to pay it down faster, right? Question just came in. How do I increase income as a single parent? It's really hard. I'm not gonna lie. And one of the things that I have this conversation all the time. I have this conversation all the time where people say, I can't financially I can't financial literacy my way out of debt or out of a hard problem. And I agree 100%. But I believe that not just budgeting, but um, all these other financial literacy education topics, tools, they're going to help you understand your finances better, so that you can, number one, do things like cut expenses, right? Do things like remove debt. So how do I increase income as a single parent? Without knowing more particulars, it's very hard to understand. But I will say this: please feel free to email me, right? Let me put up this lesson real quick. You know what? When I follow up with my email, feel free to email me. I do one-on-ones, I do group presentations. More than happy to talk to you. Increasing income as a single parent is difficult. I'm not gonna lie. But there are ways to do it, right? Side hustles, Etsy is one way that I know a friend of mine is doing as well. She sells those cut, what do you know, the little crit custom cut thing print items. So she does a pretty good job there. Started as a small little hobby. She's making money. So think about your skills. Think about what you like to do, and then try to monetize it. Right? Okay. Sorry, it's 1 o'clock. Let me wrap up. Reminder: please subscribe to our newsletter. You probably heard about this webinar through the newsletter, so thank you for joining and registering. Share our newsletter, right? Subscribe to the DFPI. Of course, subscribe to the DFPI's YouTube channel. We publish this webinar and lots of other content onto our YouTube channel, so you don't want to miss those videos. Also, I need your feedback, right? There's a link right here. You could go to it. Give me your feedback. Am I talking too fast? Is the slides too long, too much text? Let me know what I'm doing wrong. Let me know what I'm doing right. And I definitely want to improve these for you and the next one. And then, of course, our next webinar is February 7th at noon. It's a Wednesday. You could register for that webinar there. It's about how to build generational wealth. It's going to be an awesome webinar. Awesome webinar. So join us. And again, thank you. Thank you for joining the webinar. Please have a wonderful day. Please take care of yourself and please take care of others. So have a fantastic day. I will talk to you all later. Thank you for joining.